So I've decided in my infinite wisdom to begin reviewing the Star Trek movies, because Hulu added almost every single one of them. Few exceptions, so probably going to have to cut this off at Nemesis unless it comes up again on Netflix or Hulu eventually re-adds it. We're starting with 1979's Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Now, starting off here, we have the song that you may think of as being from the theme of Star Trek Next Generation. This is James Horner's score. Quite good. Really can't say anything bad about this. I think it might have been slightly changed up for Star Trek Next Generation. Dun, 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 dun. But it's weird to associate this music with the cast of the original series. And as music goes, eventually in the movie you do hear some of the original theme song. This was one of the first movies to really play like a lot of today's films in the way that it's pulling the nostalgia. Did I just say nostalgia or some shit? It's hot. So it's like, hey, we've got a big budget now. We're giving you Kirk, we're giving you Spock, we're giving you Bones, Sulu, Nurse Chapel, Yeoman Rand, Scotty, Sulu, Uhura, anyone I didn't mention. We've got a budget. You're going to get a good look of the ship. You're going to have your classic Star Trek adventure. So this script feels like a Star Trek episode expanded to like 2 hours or so. This is quite a long feeling movie. It's really lacking in energy, but in some ways, I could see a middle ground between this and Abrams being pretty enjoyable. Those movies went quite the opposite way, flooding you with details and stuff to blast your synopses so that you really can't compute what's even happening in the plot. This is a lot different. It's slow and lethargic, and it could have used a kick in the pants. So there is this cloud floating around. It's going quite fast. It's headed to Earth. Some Klingons intercepted. Klingon ships look awesome. The Klingon Makeup. This is the first appearance of what I think we would now call the classic Klingon look. Yes, Klingons appear in the original series, but when you think of Klingons, this is the movie that starts what we think of Klingons looking like. That their ship isn't really on some peace mission. That their bridge looks like a Russian sub with the red lights on and a haze for no reason. Atmospheric, guys. They have the crown with the ridges. They look like they're dressed in wolf skin and metal. This is a cool ass look. And like I said, the ships look great. Outer space stuff looks like the shit. The guy who really supervised these effects, Douglas Trumbull, this is a guy who's made like a lot of great miniatures and composite shots for like Blade Runner, which was the last non-digital sci-fi movie ever made. This movie looks really good. I mean, this has a hell of a budget. It actually visually looks more impressive than Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, which they had to do on the cheap and just kind of recycle a few things from this movie. Because this movie didn't do so good. This was not gangbusters at the theater like people at Paramount were hoping for. Well, the cloud zaps the Klingon ships, takes them out, heads to a space station. Space station's keeping an eye on it. Says the thing's headed to Earth. Has unmeasurable power. It's huge. We gotta do something. There's only one ship in the area. They can intercept this thing before it gets to Earth in like 9 days, I think they said. And that is the Enterprise, which is, I believe we're to believe here that this is the original Enterprise from the movie, or from the OS series, but it's been retrofitted. It's getting some upgrades. It has a new captain, Deckard, who, yeah, I know we have some issues with him. Yeah, he's the father from Seventh Heaven. I'll be mentioning Seventh Heaven again when I get through to Star Trek 4 here. But he's the captain, and he is getting overridden. He's getting demoted to first officer because Kirk is back in town. Admiral James T. Kirk has taken it upon himself with his experience and how vital this mission is to oversee getting the Enterprise ready and investigate this phenomenon. Deckard doesn't much like this because, hey, he was picked to take control of the Enterprise. Recommended personally by the Admiral Kirk. Oh, but that has gone out the window now, hadn't it? So, Kirk's getting his crew together. There's some new faces, some familiar. Chekhov, forgot to mention him earlier. Sulu, Uhura are on the bridge. There's a science officer who is trying to beam in, and he's a Vulcan. And we talked to him briefly in this at the beginning. And I gotta say, props to Hulu for having the theatrical version of this. I think when I saw this last on Netflix, it was the director's cut from like, did they say it was like 15 or 25 years later? They added some CGI and they changed some things up. So this preserves the original look, which looks really quite damn good. You know, in some ways better looking than Star Wars, but not as good looking as Empire Strikes Back. So anyways, transporter malfunctions. The people end up beamed back, but whatever they received over at the base didn't live long, thank God. And I think Yeoman Rand's taking this pretty hard, but it's like, nothing you could have done. It wasn't your fault. James T. Kirk, I have no emotions because now I'm Spock. So, Spock isn't there, but he gets aboard eventually because he sensed this powerful being when he was on Vulcan going through some trials. So yeah, that's in play here. So Spock is offering his assistance here. Deckard loses his science officer position that he briefly held. And hell, he's not really first officer so much anymore either. This guy really just gets kicked around, you kind of feel bad for him. So, Bones aboards the ship. They said that there was a guy who didn't want to get in the transporter. And that's Bones for you. So it's like, hey McCoy, welcome to the Enterprise. And he's like, what the hell am I doing here? I think he's looking kind of scraggly. He's got like a beard and stuff. But for some weird reason, McCoy is like quite the fashionista in these movies. He's always got like some kind of like, I don't know, I'm not going with regulation here. Shit, what came out of my nose? Yeah, I've got some allergies. Deal with it. So, yeah, he doesn't really play by the rules. But did anybody want to tell him that the last people to use the transporter died? You know, yeah, I can certainly see some reinforcement for his no transporter rule here. So he's keeping an eye on Jim as a pal, and he's overseeing how Kirk is bossing around Deckard, who made a good call when they got trapped in a wormhole. Effects here, not so good. I wouldn't blame Trumbull on this, because this is a movie directed by a guy who doesn't do these kind of movies. What is his name? Robert Wise? He's the director of West Side Story, which is a decent movie, and The Sound of Music, which is pretty damn good. But I guess they just were like, hey, we need a competent name to get behind this. We'll give you all the bit players. You just keep them in line. You can do this. And it's an okay movie, really. This is not a shit fest. This is Star Trek the Motion Picture. The most Star Trek of all the Star Trek movies, for better or worse. So Deckard saved him by ordering a torpedo instead of phasers to shoot this thing. So he saved the ship, but Jim doesn't actually know the ship as well anymore. He's having a tough time admitting that. They eventually meet up with a cloud of mass, and it's probing the ship. They can't try to probe it because it might see that as a hostile act, and it's got this like weird vortex on the bridge. It's crazy looking, and it zaps this Aaliyah, who is a Deltan. She has a bit of a thing for Deckard, but she has this sworn to celibacy thing going. So yeah, they're this forbidden love couple. are Romeo and Juliet in this movie. She gets zapped, taken off the ship. Then she returns, but it's an android. They're like, hey, this is a replica, this is not her. But it's a very authentic replica. And she's talking weird, she talks about V'ger. They're like, who is V'ger? V'ger is the cloud. As Spock goes in to investigate, really cool looking effects here. He tries to interface with it, mind meld. And they eventually find out that they can board V'ger as it's kind of investigating human life and living vicariously through Ilea. And so they eventually talk the thing into letting them go take a look at V'ger, and they find out it is the Voyager spaceship that was sent out past the solar system to go look for new life. It's been intercepted by some being that has taken upon its name, and it had something scrapped off, so it's reading V'ger. And that's what it's doing. I guess it might have ignored a whole lot of the peace messages that were put on some, what was it, platinum CD or some shit. It's supposed to last like 700 plus years, or a million or something, and greet everybody, show them like images of humans breastfeeding. I shit you not. So anyways, Deckard really loves Ilea, and she's kind of acting more human. They eventually decide to just leave Deckard. They're gonna like fuse together, become one, and complete V'ger's mission of sorts. And he's like, oh, it's a great sacrifice. I'm not really dead, I'm just transferring into a different kind of energy. Me and Ilea, baby. So you gotta think of him as not dying, even though it's sort of sad to kill off some crew members that aren't wearing red shirts. But these are new guys. That way you can introduce somebody new, kill them off like James Bond movies, and not feel bad for some veteran of the franchise dipping out. That's what you get kind of here. But as it emotionally goes, does it really get that kind of resonance? Probably not, to be honest. I have to say that the costumes in this, I see what they were going for. Space pajamas. However, they don't look as buttoned down professional, as sophisticated as what we get in the Wrath of Khan, which stick around for some time with the series and have a big influence on the costumes until J.J. Abrams meddles with them. So a lot of the things you think of in a Star Trek movie may have really come from Wrath of Khan, but you gotta give this movie some respect too. Yeah, we get a long sequence of looking at the ship, but hey, I like the way Kirk jokes with Scotty. He's like, the Enterprise, she gave him back to me. Oh, I got a feeling it wasn't that easy. No, it wasn't. And then they have a little laugh. Yeah, it's a long look at the ship because fans want to see the ship, right? Yeah, we get a like 6-minute view going inside V'ger because the fans want to be wowed by these long takes, huh? And cutting back to the crew just looking around in awe. Yeah. In those ways, I'm not saying the effects date the movie as much as the style. I give Star Trek the Motion Picture 2.5 out of 4 stars. Whew.